Hello and welcome back to the farm. A quick announcement. From this point on, I am focusing on the landscape aspect of gardening. So I've not seen any other channels have that focus. I will still have the other elements of gardening in here, in this channel. But the primary focus is on landscaping with an emphasis on the edible side. I will not be going full on edible landscaping because I don't have that reason to. But if that's what you're wanting to do, I hope this will be a good starting place for you. Now, I've already talked about the premise of landscaping in a previous video. Today I'm talking about how do you landscape. Now, the easiest and simplest way is to start with a focal point. What I refer to is the first part of the yard, regardless of where you're entering at, is where your eyes are going to be drawn to. In this situation, the tree that I've been pointing the camera to is my focal point. That is the centralmost part of the yard. From the back door or rounding the corner from the side gate, you will see this tree. And that is what we refer to as a line landscaping. You're using a line to landscape. And I use that technique heavily. You see it in my garden, you see it in the back row there, because I already had lines made out for me. That just made my job easier because I had something to build off of. If you don't have a fence, then you have a lot more expressive freedom. In this case, I had a fence, so I just went with the fence. Now, what I would also tell you to do is, what type of look are you looking for? Are you wanting a Japanese maple, which again doesn't fit what I'm wanting to do? Are you wanting a tree that has a little more nature value? A tree that has a certain color of foliage in the fall, a certain type of flower. Does it smell good? Does the flower smell good? Am I wanting to add honeybees? Will that plant be beneficial for the bees? Will it enhance my yield of my other plants that are fruit or nut or vegetable garden bearing, excuse me? These are all questions you need to take into account. In this case, I went for crabapple. Doesn't give crab apples, it's a berry tree. My honeybees love it. I love the color of the tree in the winter because it has vibrant yellow. I've seen this tree go orange, and I don't have a lot of orange bearing trees out in this neighborhood. Very nice backdrop, excuse me. That is what we call substitution. You're substituting one plant for another based off of look, feel, shape. Doesn't matter. You are free to pick whatever you want. Just make sure that it has its needs met. Then I always say, don't forget about nature. Include nature into here. Because if you have a tree, you're going to attract birds. Like, I can already see a cardinal in one of the trees out there. You also attract your pollinators, which is beneficial for your fruit production. In this case, I have honeybees, so I have to worry about that more than someone else. Third thing is you need to pick an element. That element can be stone, it can be wood, it can be metal. Pick the element that you like and keep it consistent. If you use stone, make sure everything else that you do has stone with it or around it. Whatever you decide to do, keep that same element. If you like using wood and you like raised beds, that is perfectly fine. But in this case, I'll give you an example. If I can swing my camera here, you can see I have metal raised beds in small square, let me just rephrase that. You see I have small square raised beds, but you know, behind that I have a wood raised bed. That is a transitional point. Same thing with the other beds I have. I use wood. I like the look of wood, which also means that I like straight lines, because I already incorporated the fence line. I'll get to that here in a bit. The most important aspect you have to worry about is if you plant a tomato plant, make sure it's getting minimum 6 hours of sunlight. But you also have to consider when that sunlight's hitting. Is it hitting in the afternoon where it's the most intense, or is it hitting in the morning where it's not as intense? Does it get afternoon shade? If it's getting too much shade, the plant won't grow. Like that tree there. Let me center it a little better. That tree needs 6 to 8 hours of sunlight, minimum. That's perfectly fine for that. Now, to get into what I was talking about with the look of the bed. Now, you can see a couple different things. You can see the straight lines, you can see the wild lines, as I call them, the curvy lines. Now, let me draw you to the tree first. The tree, the bed around the tree is more curved. I wanted to have more of a wild look because that is what corresponds to my garden, which has more of a neater, manicured look. So that directly conflicts, but because it conflicts, it ties everything together. Whereas with your raised garden beds, you're going to have the 90-degree straight angles, which I want to have that as an extension to the fence line. So this makes the fence line out. The other reason why I put my garden on the fence line is the birds will use that as a post. The post isn't the best word for it, but that's what just came to mind. Meaning that the fertilization rate of the garden increased due to the proximity of a fence line. So that's also something you need to take into account. Landscaping can be as varied and as free to expression as the person doing the landscaping, person or persons, excuse me. Do not be afraid to try something new. Do not be afraid to change up. But be mindful of the limitations. If you have a 10 acre yard and you can't get water to the end of the acre, and you're going to carry buckets over there, let's be realistic about that. You do not need to make the job harder than what it is. Start small. Start with something that you know that you want to last. Then build around that. If you want to include your tomatoes into your landscaping, find an area that fits the parameters of that plant and include it on, and use the same element. If you like metal cases, use those cases. It ties everything together. Do not be afraid to experiment. When I say experiment, find something that works for you. Everyone's different, and that's okay. Landscaping is all about expression and freedom. I didn't create this yard on a whim. I planted things that I knew I would like, and I knew that the bees will enjoy and use. I brought in nature because I like seeing nature. There's other reasons for that, but I'll get into another video because I don't want to make this video too long. So we're almost at the 10-minute marker. Also, be mindful of if you have trouble bending down. If you can't bend down, so a lot of people have that, Build or raise beds up higher. Create a look that you enjoy and that the people that live with you enjoy as well. Again, creativity is key. And I always encourage people to be creative because now it's your own element. And that has been enough of this video. I hope it helps you out. This is Tulsa Urban Farmer. Thanks for joining. I'll catch you next week.